welcome back to my channel. Today I just want to get right into it and talk about the Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. Now, I talked a little bit about this book in my fall book haul, and I will leave a link to that somewhere around here. But basically, this book by John Green is like a collection of essays, kind of just like random thoughts. And I was inspired to get this because I watched an interview with John Green in a Johnny Harris video. And I love Johnny Harris, by the way. If you don't watch his videos, I would highly recommend checking him out. He does super interesting things about like history and just history, geography, current events, all sorts of like just... I don't even know how to explain it, but I do really like his content. But anyway, he had John Green on his channel and interviewed him regarding the Piggly Wiggly and basically why and how we got supermarkets as we know them today. And it was really interesting, and I realized that what he was talking about was part of his new book, The Anthropocene Reviewed. So I was like, I should definitely read that book. I found that video fascinating. I'll link it up here. I forget what it was called, but something about supermarkets. Now, I have actually never read anything else by John Green before. I know that he's kind of known for his like YA, young adult kind of stuff. I don't really read a ton of YA, but he did, I think, The Fault in Our Stars and Looking for Alaska and like other stories like that. So I've never picked him up before, but he sounded so cool in that interview. And apparently this is kind of related to his podcast, which I've never listened to, but maybe we'll start. And he wrote this kind of during the pandemic, and it's basically a bunch of essays about his thoughts on various topics, and he ranks them like 2 stars, 4 stars, 5 stars, and he gives a lot of his like explanation and his thoughts and often like some background and history. Like I mentioned, the Piggly Wiggly and how we got the modern supermarket is one of them. There are a bunch of other topics ranging from sunsets to scratch and sniff stickers to the teddy bear to the internet to just like everything, broad, niche, all sorts of things. And I really enjoy the way he approaches these topics. He's not pretending to be unbiased or anything like that, but I enjoy reading just his thoughts. And I feel like a book like this kind of relies on how witty and how interesting the author is approaching topics. And if you don't have a lot of kind of witticisms to add, then this probably would be like a terribly written book and it would just not be fun to read. But he does have just the perfect amount of kind of wit and humor infused, but it's not too much, it's not over the top. And a lot of the funniest little additions come via the footnotes. So if you read this book, I would highly recommend reading the footnotes for the different essays. I mean, I kind of always would probably recommend reading footnotes, but especially in this case, it's not only additional information, but it makes the reading experience so much better because it's kind of additional humor and insight. And I just love the footnotes in these. I guess I just sort of love the way he takes random thoughts and anxieties and musings that he has had, especially like during this pandemic time, and turns them into a narrative and gives them sort of a structure. And it works. It makes total sense, and especially this time, this place, I feel like a lot of us can relate to really introspecting and outrospecting. I think a lot of us can relate to looking inside and evaluating ourselves and evaluating the things around us and our habits and what is part of our day-to-day life, because we've had this opportunity, a lot of us, to just really sit and marinate and think about those things. I love the addition of the ratings at the end as well. I think it takes topics that could sometimes feel a little too heavy and a little too weighted down, and it keeps it really fun and makes it really a lighthearted read, like in the end, which is great because sometimes he's tackling things like climate anxiety, which I know I definitely suffer from, and he just kind of infuses it with a little bit of lightness. And he's actually helped me a lot with some anxiety that I've felt lately, which I didn't really expect from this book. I thought it would just be kind of a funny read, but I think it's actually eased a lot of my anxiety about the world lately, and I don't know how it did that, but it just did. I think he kind of infused the perfect amount of warmth and humor via kind of personal anecdotes and a lot of his own stories, which again, I think this type of collection really relies on striking that balance, striking that perfect chord, and to me, he really hit it. So as somebody who, this is my first time reading John Green, I was like pleasantly surprised and super impressed. I think I already mentioned that because these are basically essays, there's not really like plot to go through, and I'm not going to sit and review each and every essay, and I'm really not going to talk about the ones that I didn't like as much, because there were some that I just fell a little more flat for me, but I am going to talk about a couple of the highlights for me. I think one of my favorite essays was Teddy Bear. It was the one about, I think it was called Teddy Bear. It was the one about teddy bears, and it talks about, of course, the history and mythology with Teddy Roosevelt and kind of how teddy bears came to be, but also like what they stand for and the juxtaposition of our treatment and emotion towards actual bears versus teddy bears, and how those have kind of grown separately together, I don't know, over the years. I don't even know how to explain it so well, but I just love the way he did that. It was chef's kiss. Oh, the one about the Hall of Presidents was also pretty funny, I thought. But I also really liked, it was one of the earlier essays in the book, and I think it's called, yeah, okay, I've got notes. It's called Humanity's Temporal Range. And to me, this really hit something in me because, like I said, I kind of deal with climate anxieties as well. And for me, climate anxiety is definitely prevalent in my life, and something about the way he addressed this really put me at ease. I don't know why or how, but I feel like somebody speaking so openly about their own climate anxieties, but then also the way he addressed like, oh, you know, humans, the human temporal range or humanity's temporal range. He's talking about like our range, and you know, the earth will probably go on after us even if it'll be so changed. And I don't know, I really liked this essay as well because it actually literally physically eased anxieties that I feel every single day, and something clicked in my brain where I'm like, you know what, it's like, okay, I know you feel some anxiety, but something, I don't know, this helped me. I don't know how. I don't know what kind of witchcraft it was, but it helped me. In this particular essay, I really appreciate the section where he talks about going to the Orlando Science Center as a child. It really reminded me of my own anxieties growing up because I had a lot of anxiety as a child regarding the concepts of infinity and eternity, which sounds weird, but I remember when I was little, I went to church and they talked about, you know, you go to heaven for eternity, and I was like upset about that. I didn't like that idea at all, and like called up our whatever the head church person was and was like really freaked out. Same thing with like infinity. I've always been like, now it's a little bit easier for me, but when I was a kid and I first started learning about infinity and thinking about infinity, that really freaked me out as well. Like I would get so anxious thinking about that. So I kind of appreciated that blurb as well, where he's talking about when he was young at the Orlando Science Center, because I found that incredibly relatable. I just think as a whole, this entire collection really worked for me. Like I said, there were a few essays that I wasn't like the biggest fan of and missed the mark a little bit, but overall as a collection, I found it funny and really informative actually, and just the perfect balance. So I would definitely recommend it. I actually don't have a lot of heavy criticisms because I think that he kept this so just perfect, and for the most part the essays are pretty concise as well. They don't go on and on and on. He definitely just keeps it concise, keeps it funny, but not too funny, and definitely informs you, and I really, really enjoyed it. I guess I don't have a lot more to say other than read this book. It was good. I think a lot of people would like it. I think it could probably reach a pretty broad range of people. If you don't like essays, then of course you probably won't love it, but I would highly recommend it. To take a page out of the literal book I'm talking about, I give it 4.5 stars. I've got my own John Green rating, the Anthropocene Reviewed. Also, can we talk about the title? Clever title, funny title. I love it. He explains it a little bit more in, I don't remember if it was the intro or one of the earlier stories, but he does kind of talk about the title a little bit more. But anyway, 4.5 out of 5 stars for me. I thought it was great. And let me know down below if you've also read this and what your thoughts were. And yeah, what were some of your favorite essays as well? What were some essays you maybe didn't like? And that's about it. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you later. Please like and please subscribe.